You may now start the screen sharing. It's Intramuros.
Ma'am, nakikita na po ba?
Kindly, yes. Pero parang, yes. Okay na siya.
So, good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. Today, we're going to present two significant places in the Philippines. First, we have the Intramuros. So, let's take a quick tour to the oldest district in Manila, Intramuros. The walled city of Intramuros plays an important part to our country's history. It is one of the popular destinations for a visitor to our hometown. In fact, you'll feel like you're being taken back hundreds of years ago when you visit this place. We can see and feel how old this place was, and it is because the Spanish began building Intramuros in 1521 on a 0.67 square meters of land strategically between Manila Bay and the Pasig River. For 400 years, it served as the center of the Spanish occupation, where the seat of the Spanish government was. Originally built to be the residence for Spanish government officials and their families. It was where the most influential and wealthy citizens of colonial Manila lived. The natives and Chinese were not allowed to live inside, only the Spanish elite and mestizos. As you can see, one exceptional thing about this place was how we are able to still see the original wall structure and gates. Although it has been devastated by different battles, fires, and earthquakes, it has survived the test of time. The pentagonal walls, seven gates, and small plazas that distinguish Intramuros from the surrounding Malay and Americanized districts of Manila have been restored. Together with the few period houses, is also one of the reasons why Intramuros is unique. The Intramuros gives us not only a glimpse, but more importantly, a souvenir of history. As the meaning implies inside the wall, in our opinion, it signifies inside our history. The preserved wall city of Intramuros is a portal of the past that allows our present and future generations to look back on one of the most significant pieces of our Philippine history. It also gives the people an unparalleled experience of the past no matter what generation one is born. For the second one, we have Piyak na Bato. May we have Miss Kelly to present it.
The Tagalog word Biak na Bato means cleft rock. It is the name of a location in Bulacan Province's mountains where insurgent soldiers led by General Emilio Aguinaldo withdrew from the approaching Spanish army in 1897. The Filipino insurgents and the Spaniards signed a peace deal here, putting the Philippine Revolution on stop. The Republic of Biak na Bato is a designation referring to the Second Revolutionary Republican government led by Emilio Aguinaldo during the Philippine Revolution. It was signed on November 1, 1987.
Correct me,
During
1987, it's 1897.
1897, ma'am. Sorry.
Sige.
During the Spanish administration, the rights of Filipinos were neglected, including freedom. For the Philippine revolutionary leaders, gaining independence from a foreign authority was a tricky problem. Since the 19th century, the Filipinos have waged numerous fights that have resulted in deadly revolutions under the Spanish government. The Filipino armies were tenacious in their pursuit of independence. As a result, we feel that it is one of the remarkable stepping stones they made towards becoming an independent country. It is unique because it rose the independence of our country, wherein our forefathers fought for the liberation of our country. Moreover, it was instrumental in the formation of a lodge under the Grand Lodge of the Philippines in Saigon, South Vietnam. On December 15, 1897, the Pact of Biak na Bato was signed, establishing a truce between Spanish colonial governor General Fernando Primo de Rivera and revolutionary leader Emilio Aguinaldo to bring the Philippine Revolution to a conclusion, making it significant. Plus, it is the sole reason we have our sovereignty today, the Biak na Bato. May we have Miss Caitlin to read the second part of the Biak na Bato.
Hello, ay audible po.
Yes, you're audible.
It was significant at the time because the Philippines was engaged in a struggle for the independence of its people and for its right as a nation, but then, thankfully, our embattled forefathers sought to bring a peaceful end to the violence and strife that had swept across the land. It was the drafting of the Biak na Bato Constitution to make the Philippines take its rightful place among the nations of the world. It made a causal significance at that time, as the day after the Biak na Bato Constitution was signed, it was the election of the first ever Supreme Council of the Philippines. Those elected were Emilio Aguinaldo, the President, Mariano Trias, Vice President, Isabelo Artaco, Secretary of the Interior, Antonio Montenegro, Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Baldomero Aguinaldo, Secretary of Treasury, and Emiliano Riego de Dios, Secretary of War. In the light of recent events, it would be wise for us to examine our national aspirations in relation to our goals as a nation. Just as our forefathers did 100 years ago, so now today, we must carefully and thoughtfully weigh the consequences of our actions and their benefits to our people. Let us show to all the strength Let us show to all the strength of our unity, solidarity, and teamwork as those of the revolution did 100 years.
All right. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you learned something.
Okay. Did you follow the format that was given in your group in the MS Teams? Did you follow?
Yes po, ma'am.
What do you feel about knowing the history of these two significant places? What did you feel about these two? Diba, knowing you already cited the significance of this place, kung anong naganap dito, bakit nangyari ito, and others. So after knowing that one, that the Intramuros, actually the Intramuros, it's, sabi nyo nga, it's a wall, diba? Probably it is also built during the time of the Spaniards because it is already for 100 years. That's according to your research. Am I correct? Yes. Okay. So after knowing that one, what did you feel about it?
Ma'am,
Yes.
it gives us the people unparalleled experience of the past po. Like, kahit ngayon po kapag nag-visit kami sa Intramuros, mas mafe-feel po namin yung mga nangyari, mga kaganapan po noon, kung ano yung mga itsura po ng mga structures noon po.
Yes, diba? Kasi you bring back on the past eh. It was during 1521, sabi na nga. So naipatayo siya sa panahon ng Spaniards. See the significant event that it happened. And this is, I do not know if I already mentioned this one in your section, that when I look at old statues or old buildings, probably the brick one, diba? They are built by our forefathers. The wall that we admire right now is the one was built by our forefathers through the forced labor during the Spaniards' time. That's why it is very significant. And one factor, if you remember in your Philippine history, the Mac Battle in Manila, it was the takeover of the American Spaniards. Kung babasahin nyo ang history nyo or yung kasaysayan natin, dito naganap ang Mac Battle ng Manila na kung saan, di ba alam naman natin na tayo ay ibinenta ng mga Espanyol, tama? Sa kamay ng mga Amerikano. Tama, mali? Yes, it was in the Treaty of Paris. So, ang Mac Battle of Manila, ginanap siya sa may Intramuros. Diba? Doon nakilala ng mga Pilipino kasi ang nakasaad sa treaty, they mention na ibebenta ang Pilipinas sa halagang 20 milyong dolyar. para maging magkaayos ang dalawang bansa since it's the time of world wars during the 18th century. No, it's 19th century pala. Ayan. So since nabenta tayo, so walang representative, ito ikukwento ko ulit sa inyo, walang representative na Filipino doon sa Treaty of Paris na yon. So since walang representative, hindi alam ng mga Filipino. Ang alam ng mga Filipino, our forefathers, that the Americans were our saviors from the hands of the Spaniards. But they do not know na ang mock battle Manila, ang sabi ng usapan tungkol sa Treaty of Paris, sabi nila magkaroon tayo ng mock battle sa may Manila. It's a party between the American soldier and the Spaniard soldier para hindi magtaka ang Pilipino na para yung pagsakop natin sa bansang Pilipinas ay mas madali, sabi ng mga Amerikano, at mas matatanggap ng mga Pilipino yun kung ang alam nila ay tayo ay hero. And that, the significant place, it's the Intramuros. Doon naganap ang mock battle na kung saan nagbombahan ng dalawang panig, but sad to say, walang namatay ni pareho. Pero ang kawawang Pilipino nagbunyi noong nanalo ang mga Amerikano. But they do not know that it is already part of the Treaty of Paris na iintindihan. So that is the historical site that we have to look at. It's the Intramuros. Naiintindihan po natin. Are you still with me?
Yes po.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now we proceed with the Biak na Bato. Eto, alam natin na what is all about the Biak na Bato. The Biak na Bato Republic, diba? It was the first ever republic that was established in the Philippine area, in the Philippine history. Ayan. So kung ang ating Biak na Bato, diba, actually meron na namang controversy dyan. If you watch the movie of Emilio Aguinaldo, yung unang presidente, the El Presidente movie, diba? Ang nahalal sa part na yan na presidente, it's Emilio Aguinaldo. It's a battle between Andres Bonifacio and Emilio Aguinaldo during that time. So ma'am, paano nagkaroon ng Biak na Bato Constitution, the Pact of Biak na Bato? You mentioned that a while ago, or may I ask the reporter, what's all about the Pact of Biak na Bato? Anong meron sa kasunduan ng Spaniards at ni Emilio Aguinaldo kay Governor Primo de Rivera? What's the pack of this one? Diba sabi nyo, it's one of the significant place. Why is it said to be that it is a significant place?
Ma'am.
Yes. Sige.
Ay,
You may pause your output for a while. Para may reference kayo dyan. I hope that other parties are also listening because we do not know that I might include this in your exam. Oh, bakit? Bakit isa siyang significant na area? Why do you think that the Biak na Bato is a significant place or significant area in the history?
Ma'am, because it is the separation of the Philippines from the Spanish monarchy and its establishment as an independent and sovereign state with the name República de Filipinas with its own government. Yun po, ma'am.
Okay. 'Di ba actually, ayan na kasi, yes, you're you're true on that. May I know what's the reference of that one? You might include sa mga magre-report later on, better you make sure that you put there your references pala. I forgot to mention later on when you pass your outputs. Ayan. Yes, tama po yun. But sad to say, it's now, eto na yung unti-unting liwanag. Kasi after, you remember the propaganda movement? It was the first propaganda. It's also a revolution. And then, nung hindi naging successful yon, here comes your Katipunan. And a part of the Katipunan, a member of the Katipunan is Emilio Aguinaldo. So, nung namatay si Andres Bonifacio, yes, nung namatay siya, eto na po na-establish ang Biak na Bato. Because if you look back into the history, the pack of Biak na Bato, ito yung kay Emilio Aguinaldo at si Governor Primo de Rivera. Na ibig sabihin, sabi nila na magkakaroon sila ng kasunduan na walang, this is prior sa pagpasok ng mga Amerikano. Ito na yung timeline niya. Nauna to bago yung Intramuros. So magkakasunod na yan. So ang naganap dito, hindi naging matagumpay, but they still established the Republic of the Philippines. 'Di ba? Hindi naging matagumpay yung minention nyo na si Emilio Aguinaldo at si Governor Primo de Rivera. But ma'am, bakit hindi matagumpay? Nakapag-establish sila ng gobyerno, tama? At nasa kamay pa rin tayo ng mga Espanyol. How come it is possible na nakapag-establish sila ng government? It's because the forces of the Spaniards, due to the different revolutions in the Philippines, humina na po ang kanilang forces. And that's now the entering of the Americans. You remember na pinatapon siya ngayon si Emilio Aguinaldo sa Hong Kong. Doon niya nakilala yung isang Amerikano, si George Dewey ata yun, if I'm not mistaken. So that's how the history works. It is interconnected. So the Biak na Bato Republic that we have, it was established kahit nandito pa yung mga Spaniards. But due to the forces of the Spaniards na mahina na, naka-establish tayo ng gobyerno. And it was also strengthened by the Malolos Constitution. Remember that you cannot put up a certain government without a certain constitution. The legal framework of it. Naiintindihan? That's the historical context nung dalawang significant na place na ito. Clear tayo doon? May question? Do you have question? Wala naman. So, ayan. So, very good, Group 4 for your output. Kasi at least, diba, you cited some of the significant event na naging makasaysayan yung discussion natin. It's because of the place na nabanggit na ninyo. Very good output, Group 4. And with that, I will give you this. A round of applause for your output for this evening. Okay. Other groups, do you want to have a question regarding their outputs? Or do you want to add some information?
Wala na po, ma'am.
Ay, wala na. So, since tapos na, yes, tapos na po ang Group 4, we proceed. Nakahinga na po ng maluwag ang ating Group 4. The next group. Ayan. Congratulations, Group 2. Yes, it's now the time of Group 2 to present your output. The members of Group 2 are the following. There you go. Where it is. Ayan. So, ang Group 2 po natin ay kinabibilangan nila Margaret, Mia, Yuliflor, Lance, and Cassandra. The virtual floor is yours to take.
Good evening, ma'am. We are Group 2 and we will be discussing two topics. First will be Magellan reaches the Philippines and then Declaration of Martial Law, 1972.
Ito pa yan.
For our first reader, may we have Yuliflor? Ms. Pangi?
Okay. What do you think about the person, event, and place that you have chosen? Ferdinand Magellan is well remembered for discovering the Strait of Magellan while commanding the first expedition to successfully round the world for Portugal and later Spain. Juan Sebastian del Cano finished the journey after he died en route. He was a hero throughout his brave career as a soldier and sailor because of his unselfish acts for the good of others, his strong will against those who oppose him, and his resilience in the face of adversity. About his leadership, driven to the extent that he left his homeland in disgrace to chase his purpose, a poor communicator but one of the world expert at his job, willing to give it all his purpose more so that other leaders fierce task-oriented leader quelled immunity violently. By his ambitious trip across the world in search of riches and personal glory rewarded the Europeans with far more than just spices.
What is unique or exceptional about it?
about his leadership, driven to the extent that he left his homeland in disgrace to chase his purpose. A poor communicator, but one of the world's expert at his job, willing to give it all for his purpose. More so, other leaders, fierce, task-oriented leader, quelled Muti violently by his ambitious trip across the world in search of riches and personal glory, rewarded the Europeans with far more than just spices.
What does it significantly tell us about the past? It tells us that Magellan reached the Philippines, which was known as the Spice Islands at the time, as organized already. Magellan arrived in the Philippine Islands by finding a western route that would not be of the territory of the rival at the time, Portugal. It also tells that Filipinos were already trading, had a system of writing, and the way of leading its people, which shows that Filipinos already had a system in their way of living prior to Magellan coming to the Philippines and Spanish colonization. What is its contemporary significance? Why is it considered significant at the time it happened or when it was contemporary? Magellan reaching the Philippines was significant at the time it happened because Magellan's quest to find a western route so they will not go through the territorial route of their rival Portugal, the Spice Islands helped shape the culture and history of the Philippines, which has remained embedded in the Filipino roots until present, such as Magellan receiving support from King Charles of Spain in 1518 to finance the expedition journey for the spice trade and Christianity. Christianity has been brought to the country by the Spaniards and has remained the dominant religion in the country. What is its causal significance? Did it cause dramatic changes in the people's lives as well as the community, country, world, or not? It has caused dramatic changes in the people's lives, the community, country, and world because when Magellan came to the Philippine Islands, it paved the way for the Spanish colonization, which then has changed many things from the early Filipinos' way of life before the Spaniards influenced their culture. For example, Christianity was brought to the Philippines during the Spanish colonization. At present, Philippines is known as Asia's largest Christian country. It has also caused what we know as colonial mentality, which can be seen with the way we put our preferences from physical attributes to products. Though it is not as prevalent, it is still widespread in the country and has made a great impact. What is its present significance? How relevant is it to our contemporary concerns now or in the future? In the present, the Philippines has been enriched with history, from the expedition of Magellan to the studying of the history of the Philippines in the present. Magellan's arrival to the Philippines has made a great effect on our country's events. An exemplification of this would be the novels written by Dr. Jose Rizal. His novels were written to expose the abuse and wrongdoings of the Church during the time of the Spanish colonization, which opened the eyes of the Filipino people and has contributed to the spark of a revolution to fight for the country. This situation was brought by the Spanish colonization, which was initiated from the arrival of Magellan to the Philippines. At modern times, these novels are a part of the curriculum to educate the students on the past of our country, so it may educate the future of our country, the youth, on the mistakes of the past so we as Filipino citizens may create a better future. In the future, we must then have learned the past of the Philippines from the time Magellan arrived to our country, its effects, negative and positive, so we may keep the good we got from it and eradicate the negative aspects of it.
Our second topic, Declaration of Martial Law. For this, our reference was John Leo C. Algo from Rappler. Why do you think about the person, event, and place that you have chosen? Most of us perceive martial law as a period of tremendous turmoil for the country, a national condition marked by all sorts of violence, including assassination, enforced disappearance, the suspension of writ of habeas corpus, major human rights breaches, and grave military and political violation of people's civil freedoms and democratic rights. What do you feel about it? The effects of martial law were so severe that we are still suffering the effects today. The Philippine economy was horrible health by the time of Marcos was forced out of Malacanang thanks to corruption and significant borrowing from other countries. Poverty rates skyrocketed, the peso's value plumped, and the country's reputation plummeted. We remember that many were slaughtered or tortured during this time. No matter how much the Marcos attempt to make us forget, their human rights were clearly violated and their families were harmed. Yet the dictator's family lacks the decency to apologize or admit to the atrocities. What is unique or exceptional about it? The late President Ferdinand Marcos appeared on national television on September 23, 1972, to formally announce that the Philippines had been placed under martial law. This marked the beginning of country's military control, which lasted over 10 years. On January 17, 1981, Marcos technically ended martial law, but democracy was not restored until 1986. After the dictator and his family were forced into exile after being overthrown by a popular uprising known as the People Power Revolution. He was to be the country's leader and oversee the entire government's operations. Any act of insurrection would be prevented or suppressed. He ordered the armed forces. Curfew were imposed, public gatherings were prohibited, and privately held media outlets were closed.
Why is this significant and why do you feel it is significant? Marcos claimed that he had done so in response to the communist threat posed by the newly founded Communist Party of the Philippines and the Sectarian Rebellion of the Mindanao Independence Movement. It marked in the beginning of 14 years period one-man rule. It was dictatorial power wherein Marcos declared he had done so response to the communist threat and rebellion. After Marcos was ousted, martial law allowed Marcos to hide the secret status of unexplained wealth. In the 14th period of the Philippine history is remembered for the administration record for human rights abuse, targeting those who fought against Marcos' dictatorship. Yes, because it has changed the life of the many people. It also left trauma. It went against all the laws. It suspended the habeas corpus and 1935 Constitution is indissolved Congress and padlocked the doors to the Batansang Pambansa, assuming both and legislative and executive power.
And for the last slide, we will have Mr. Cabanlong.
Based on documentation of Amnesty International, task force detainees of the Philippines and similar human rights monitoring entities. Historian believes that the Marcos dictatorship was marked by 3,257 lost extrajudicial killed.
That's all for our presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Yan. So, those are the two important event din, diba? A while back, we discussed about the important place, the significant place. Now we are going to talk about your important events and the history. The very first one, it's the Magellan Expedition. May I ask anyone from the group who give me an overview? Why do you think that the Magellan Expedition is a significant part of the history of the Philippines?
Ma'am,
Yes.
I'll answer for the group.
Okay, sige.
Yeah, so when Magellan reached the Philippines, it became a significant part of our history because the Spanish colonization itself is a really big part of our history. For example, Christianity is a really big part for us Filipinos, and it would not have been made possible if it weren't for the Spanish colonization and their conversion of Christianity to us, ma'am. And in the present, the influences of the Spaniards still lives in us, ma'am, like our preferences and as what I have mentioned earlier, our mentalities are sort of still influenced, like though it is not as prevalent now. It's, for example, the physical appearances, ma'am. Before it was like more preferred if you were a certain look, you looked Western, and now it is still preferred in the Philippines. But though it is like the Philippines has adjusted to it that Morena beauty or the Philippine standard beauty is more acceptable now. It is still impacted today, ma'am, and those things, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, see? There are pros and cons pa rin na makikita natin. And you made mention that one of the greatest influence, I think, and you believe that the Magellan Expedition really brought Christianity, diba? It really turned the Philippines into a Christian country. But we cannot deny the reality that we are under their colonization for more than 3 centuries, diba? So there are really pros and cons when in terms of the contribution of the Magellan Expedition. So I want you to look at the person Sebastian Delcano or Elcano as you made mention. Ayan. Ma'am, paano yan? So what's the context of Magellan? How did Magellan arrive in the Philippines? How does Magellan reaches the Philippine island? So anybody? Diba? So, one person, ayan, kwento ko ulit sa inyo. Kasi ang kasaysayan ay isang malaking kwento. Ayan. Noong panahon ng colonization, the mercantilism, is pag-acquire ng ginto. Balikan niyo ang kasaysayan ng Pilipinas. Si Magellan ay isang Portuguese. Ma'am, paano po siya naglayag sa pangalan ng Spain? Remember? Diba? Ang nag-finance no expedition niya, it's not a Spaniard. I know, it's not a Portuguese, it's a Spaniard. Si King Charles of Spain, there you go, in 1518. Diba? How come na naglayag si Magellan sa ngalan ng Espanya? Si Magellan ay isang Portuguese na sabi niya, it's the time of mercantilism eh. Kasi kung sino ang may maraming na-acquire na land, siyang pinakamakapangyarihan. So there are two opposing countries during that time. It's the Portugal and that's the Spain. So paramihan sila. Tapos prinopose muna ni Ferdinand Magellan na sabi niya sa president, it's not the president, it's the king of the Portugal na sabi niya ang mundo ay bilog, sabi niya. It's a sphere, sabi niya. Pero ang paniniwala naman ng mga Portugal during that time ay hindi. Na pagkatapos mong ma-reach yung end, mahuhulog ka na. So there is a dead end. That's what they believe in. Diba? So after which, hindi siya pinakinggan ng King of Portugal. Ngayon, sabi niya, pupunta ako sa kabilang bansa. Kaya siya naglayag sa ngalan ng Spain. Is Ferdinand Magellan prove? Si Magellan ba mismo ang nag-prove na ang mundo ay bilog? Is it Magellan or its expedition? Which is which? Anybody? La. Ano ang contribution ni Magellan sa mundo? Aside from the Philippines. What is his greatest contribution? Anybody? Nobody. Yes, Mia.
Ma'am, his ambitious expedition proved that the globe could be circled by the sea po, ma'am.
Yes, diba? That's the greatest contribution of Magellan. Very good. And it's not Magellan mismo ang nakapag-prove niyan. The first one who circumnavigate the world, it's not Ferdinand Magellan, but Sebastian Elcano. Yung kasama ni Ferdinand Magellan. Remember na namatay si Magellan kay Lapu-Lapu, kaya hindi na siya ngayon nakabalik ng Spain. So sino din ang nag-prove nun? It is Sebastian Elcano to prove it na ang mundo ay bilog. Therefore, the theory that was made by Magellan during the world na sabi niya the world is the world is a circle or oblique spheroid. Diba? It's the expedition of Magellan. It was only confirmed after na bumalik ni Sebastian Elcano sa may Spain. Naiintindihan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So kung may nagtanong who was the first one to circumnavigate the world, it's not Ferdinand Magellan, but his colleague si Sebastian Elcano. Balikan niyo ulit yung kasaysayan ninyo. This is in the world history kasi. Okay, dumako tayo sa pangalawang question niya, sa martial law. Ayan. This is very contemporary issue. The declaration of martial law as of now, diba? Why do you think that it is part of the history? The declaration of martial law. What does it signify? Group 2. What does the declaration of martial law signifies in the Philippine history?
Ma'am, it signifies po na freedom is essential for every country po, ma'am.
Okay, diba? Freedom is essential. That's a very good one because during that time of, actually it was the second regime na kasi niya. Yung first term niya, maganda-ganda pa ang Pilipinas during that time. Kung babalikan niyo ang kasaysayan ng Pilipinas, I do not know if Stanley Carag, I believe I already mentioned this one when you are under the Philippine politics and governance. So ayan, diba? So ang ating, yes, the freedom of speech during that time was hampered. Kumbaga, it was halted, na-stop siya. It's because yung sinabi nyo, I just want to correct the name. It is not Batasang Pambansa. It's Batasang Pambansa. Yun yung pangalan nung Malacan. It's not Malacanang. It's the Congress. Oo, tama. Yung kongreso natin during the time of martial law. the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. Alam ano tong mga to, 'di ba? Napapanahong issue na naman to kasi tatakbo na naman tatakbo na naman ang isang Marcos. So we do not know. At least you have your source na Rappler, yang source ninyo. At least you have that one. There you go. A national condition marked by all sorts of violence, including assassination, enforced disappearances, the suspension of the writ of the habeas corpus. That's why if you look now into the present, I do not know kung nade-discuss nito kay attorney. Diba? If you look right now at your 1987 Constitution, diba? Hindi basta-basta nasususpend ang writ of habeas corpus natin. Not unless there are 3 categories kasi to declare martial law. Kasi the moment you declared a martial law, all its functioning bodies will suspend. It's not the Constitution is still function during the declaration of martial law. It's because yun yung modification na ginawa nila dahil dito, the writ of habeas corpus, to present the body in the court. Ayan yung writ na yan. Diba? Kasi dati, nung nag-declare siya, it was the constitution ang meron dyan? It's not 1935, it's not it's the Batasang Pambansa. So, ayun ang nakalagay. Kasi dati, walang constitution na nagpa-function. Meron man, but the supreme of it, sabi niya dito, na-suspend ang 1935 Constitution. Therefore, the declaration of martial law, para hindi na maulit, binago ang Constitution natin. That's why we have the 1987. Na kapag nag-declare ng martial law sa kasalukuyang panahon, the 1987 Constitution, the suspension of the function of the Constitution is not granted. So magfa-function at magfa-function pa rin si Constitution natin kahit mag-declare sila ngayon ng martial law. And it is not the same during the time of this the declaration of martial law. Kasi during that time, yun na yung writ of habeas corpus. Nasuspend siya. So sa lahat ng pinaghihinalaan nilang miyembro ng NPA, wala nang pupunta sa korte, wala nang trial na nagaganap. Diba? The suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, sabi niya. So, ma'am, ano yung writ of habeas corpus? To present the body in the court. Wala na yung mga yan. So, kung pinaghinalaan ka during that time, diba, patay ka. So, that's the writ of the habeas corpus. Kaya isa siyang malaking tanong during that time. So, I hope that you seek more regarding the history of the Philippines because as I have been mentioning, diba, that he who doesn't know the past must condemn to repeat its mistake. Diba? What is the writ of the habeas corpus? What is the freedom of expression that we have? Right now, there are 2 sides of the coin that we are really hearing from side to side. Diba? And you are at your age, at our age, now we are now entitled to vote for the highest position in the government. So you look into, you weigh things, you make a rational decision regarding the things that it is happening around us. Kasi alam ko that you are feed now with the different information coming from the social media platforms. Be sure to know what are the hoaxes, what are the fake news, what is the truth during that time. During this time, and you make your own conclusion with that matter. So, wala nang katanungan. Thank you for that one. Group 4 and Group 2. Yes, nakasurvive ang ilang group. Sabi nila, yes, we survive. Hindi kami magre-report. Ayan. It's your luck. It is not me. Diba? It's your luck na hindi kayo na pili ng ating wheel of names. So, do you have any more queries? Do you have any more queries? Clarification?
None, ma'am.
None, ma'am. O, ayan. So, for this time, it's already 7:25, and I already mentioned to you that 7:30 will be the opening of your quiz. Ayan. Yes, you may take your quiz later. So, for ayan, I will give you a rest perhaps now 4 minutes. So, kung wala nang katanungan, let's close this meeting and we ended on our session, and be sure for the next reporters to prepare and your output for those who are done, pakilagay na lang po sa ating folder mamaya na gagawin ko. Sinong nag-lead ng opening prayer kanina? It's Trisha. You close now our session, Miss Trisha.
Let us bow down our head and feel the presence of the Lord. Almighty God, we give you thanks for all the graces you have given upon us. We thank you for letting us learn about your will and your commandments and for keeping alive the faith in our hearts. God, we also thank you for helping us to not give up when we make mistakes. We hope that you will still support and guide us in everything we do. Grant that we may love you always and do your will with smiling hearts and an open mind. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Goodbye, everyone. Stay safe.
Goodbye, ma'am.
Goodbye, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye and thank you, ma'am.
Goodbye. Likewise.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you po.
Likewise.
Bye, ma'am. Good night.
Bye po, ma'am.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night. Walang good night sa inyo kasi may quiz pa kayo.
Bye.
Guys, kain na kayo, guys.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night. Okay. You
Ma'am,
may
kain
now.
ka muna, ma'am.
Yes. No problem.